Good morning, friends and enemies. In today's video, we have the full running back preview for y'all for week 4 of fantasy football, where I'm telling you to sit or start every single fantasy relevant running back in every single matchup. Starting with Seattle at Arizona on Thursday night football. We're doing the exact same thing tomorrow for wide receiver. So if you enjoy this one, make sure you hit the button that looks like this and subscribe to the channel to see tomorrow's. All right, first game we're kicking things off with Thursday night football. We've got Seattle at Arizona. Arizona 1.5 points they are getting, so they're the underdogs there. Now, with Trey Benson, you have an interesting situation here with James Conner going down. Trey Benson becomes, the number one waiver wire pickup, the most trending player. When I look at the matchup between Trey Benson and Seattle, I do think there's a chance that Benson underwhelms in this one. Seattle's run defense has been really, really good. 31st in EPA allowed per rush, as you could see, allowing fewer than 3.5 yards per carry. Just not a lot of success to opposing running backs. They're a team that, wants to kind of drag you down in the mud and have you play a really inefficient type of offensive game. That being said, and you'll see a nice little facelift to the ranking system that I implemented over the last 6 or 7 days, you will see the player props for each player as long as they are available right now. So that's quite helpful, I hope, for you guys that are trying to decide between the players. Benson's projections for week 4, 59.5 rushing yards, 21.5 receiving yards, 3.5 receptions, plus 105 for an anytime touchdown. Those are incredibly strong numbers, especially out the gate. So they are projecting him to have a very, very large role, unsurprisingly. That being said, based on the matchup and based on maybe the uncertainty of who's getting the passing down work, it's like I don't really see many fantasy lineups out there that are going to be able to afford to sit Trey Benson. I think he's a great play just based on volume alone, and he's always a big play threat. But I do think matchup and maybe losing a little bit of the passing down work, he's going to be in the feels good tier. He's going to be at the very, very top of it in my rankings, which I'm going through and finishing up within the next few hours or so. He's a top 15 back for me. I think on a week-to-week basis, he's going to fluctuate based on matchup and based on the usage we saw the week before, where like sometimes he's the RB13, sometimes he's the RB17 or 18. But right now, I feel very good about having him in my lineup. On the flip side of things, Charbonnet missed last week, but he's been a full participant in practice for each of the last 2 days, suggesting that he will be back for this one versus the Cardinals, who have allowed the 7th most fantasy points to the running back position, but they are a little bit more stifling on the interior in terms of actual rush success. They might be without Will Johnson again, who's been DNP'd, so they could look to attack them via the air a little bit more. That being said, Charbonnet being active, which I'm going to project based on practice reports, does make things a little bit more murky for Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. As you can see, their anytime touchdown projection is really close. Minus 130 for Walker, minus 120 for Charbonnet. We're playing this cat and mouse game, trying to figure out, like, okay, did Walker finally take over the backfield? Wasn't efficient last week because he was getting hit behind the backfield, and they took him out because they were just dominating. But he did score twice. They did, trust him to handle 18 touches, which is no surprise here. So when I'm looking at both of these guys, like, Charbonnet is going to be a shaky flex to me. He could always score a touchdown. He's always a threat for that, but his big playability is just not there, and he's not going to give you the spike that Walker has. So Walker, for me, is going to go into the dub flex category, and I think more often than not, he's going to fit in there when Charbonnet is active. So I don't blame anyone for starting him if they feel good coming off of the last couple of weeks, which it's hard not to, but I do think when Charbonnet's back in the lineup, this does go back to a 55-45 split. Moving to Minnesota and Pittsburgh, this one should be pretty straight up. Jordan Mason at this point is a must start coming off of last week. Not surprising. He was a top 10 back and then went out and executed as such. It is Minnesota at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is 2.5 point underdogs in this one. Could be playing a little bit of catch up. And Jalen Warren's just been a beast. I mean, his number is 57.5, 22.5, 3.5 receptions, plus 140 anytime touchdown. He's right in that feels good category for me, bordering on the must start. Like the feels good, like I said, just because you see these guys in the must start and these guys in the feels good does not really make me feel a much different way about these dudes. Like I feel really good about having them in my lineup, and that's exactly where Jalen Warren will be. And then Kenneth Gainwell, despite scoring last week, he's still a guy that I don't want in my lineup. Carolina at New England. So for Carolina, Chuba's still taking the majority of work. We did see Rico Dowdle steal a goal line carry from him towards the end of the game. I hope that does not become a regular thing. But for Chuba, I feel relatively good about having him back in my lineup. I will say the Patriots' run defense has been pretty good. They have, the bangers in the middle there of Christian Barmore and Milton Williams, which is not an easy defense to run against. So for right now, when I'm looking at Chuba, I don't feel the same way about Trey Benson and Jalen Warren as I do as Chuba. Like I would prefer these guys to Chuba. So he's gonna drop into the dub flex category, but closer to the top of it for sure. He's still very involved. 17 carries last week. The other part of that game too was like, they put up 30 points against the Falcons, and yeah, I don't want to talk about it. But the problem was it was like pick sixes, it was turnovers in the short yardage area of the field. So there was not a lot of drives that they can sustain and really rack up yards. Otherwise, Chuba looked good though. On the flip side, this one is like anyone's bet. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't really know what to do here because you had Ramondre last week fumble twice. Gibson comes in, fumbles. Then Trayvon Henderson plays the majority of the second half of the game. Now they're playing the Panthers. So it's like you need to have people playing against the Panthers in your lineup, right? They're 5.5-point favorites. The game script should go in their favor. And everybody can run against Carolina. But I'd be lying if I said I felt confident about any of these dudes. You know what I mean? Like, I think on paper, it's going to be easy to look back and be like, oh, this guy played really well. That guy played really well. But if I'm making lineup decisions right now, like if I'm deciding whether or not to start Ramondre, even he's played 65% of the snaps, the double fumbles are going to kill him. Trayvon Henderson, it's like, yes, we could project that based on the fumbles, Trayvon Henderson is now going to be a starter and get the majority of the workload. But I don't know that I feel that confident. So honestly, both of them are going to go into the shaky flex category for me. They're going to both probably be more startable than a guy like Charbonnet, I think, because of the matchup and because of the upside. I think Trayvon Henderson is really boom or bust this week. Like there's a chance that he explodes and has a huge week based off what we saw last week. But there's also a chance that they just go right back to either Gibson or Ramondre as the base guy, and there isn't a whole lot that changes here. And the other guys are going to go into the rather not. I wish more Vegas lines are updated here. We don't have a ton of information right now. So next game up, we got Cleveland at Detroit. So Detroit's home. They're 9.5-point favorites in this one, 44.5-point total. Gibbs is obviously going to go right into the must-start category. Montgomery, I'm still a little bit more bearish on. Like, I know he's coming off of a phenomenal game, and he's a threat to score a touchdown on any given game. As you can see, his anytime touchdown prop is at -125, which is favoring him to score. We know Cleveland's defense is quite fucking ferocious at this point. We saw what they did to Jacobs, saw what they did to Henry. David Montgomery kind of fits into that tier of that type of running back that's probably going to struggle, probably going to score a touchdown. So David Montgomery, you know, I want to put him in the dub flex categories. We're seeing Detroit really come around and become the team that we projected in the offseason. I think I'm probably going to throw him into the shaky flex category at the top of it for sure, which will probably land him around the RB 25 to 30 range. But listen, if I'm setting my lineup and I see the Browns there and I see David Montgomery, who is really not that useful the first 2 weeks, he did score a touchdown in one of those, but he had his big breakout game against the Ravens. How sticky is that? I don't know. So again, when I'm looking at the dub flexes, like I prefer Walker, I prefer Chuba. I'd probably go as far as saying I prefer Quinshaw Judkins after last week's game where he took virtually every single touch out of the backfield, looked phenomenal. And again, as 9.5-point underdogs, this is going to be a Joe Flacco drop back game. And I can't stress this enough. There's going to be a game upcoming soon that Judkins catches 4 to 5 passes and hits RB1 territory. When Flacco drops back that often and he checks down that often, Judkins will start getting more and more involved. Jerome Ford is playing the passing down snaps, but when you're Judkins who's playing every single first and second down, you're also going to run more routes than Jerome Ford just by default. So honestly, Judkins, until he proves otherwise, despite the matchup being really difficult against the Detroit Lions, I'm still putting him into the dub flex category, and he's getting started over these guys. Jerome Ford, yeah, he's going to go into the rather not. Next matchup, we got the Chargers at the New York Giants. The Giants will be starting Jackson Dart as 6-point underdogs, 43.5-point total. I do think with all of the touches just being extremely consolidated in both of these backfields, this makes a pretty easy line for us. I think Omarion Hampton goes right into the must-start category. I mean, there's nobody else taking touches there. They're playing against the Giants. Should be good game script. -145 for an anytime touchdown. I mean, that feels phenomenal. And then Scatabo on the other side, you know, I have less faith in the offense, so I'm going to throw him into the feels good category. But without Tyrone Tracy, I mean, you just got to imagine he's going to get 15 to 18 touches in this one and probably break someone's face and likely get into the end zone. Next game up, we've got the New Orleans Saints at the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are 16.5-point favorites at home, 48.5-point total. Before I rank James Cook in the must-start tier, actually, after I rank James Cook in the must-start tier, we'll get into Alvin Kamara. But like I said earlier, all of my rankings, if you just want a list laid out from 1 to fucking 45 of the running backs or any position or any scoring type, whatever, those are available right now in our Big Dog membership. You can get it one of two ways. You can either get it at full price, bdge.co. It's just a monthly membership. Or if you go to our partner website, MGM, and deposit $10 using code either BDGE or Big Dog, BIGDOG, play any slip, they're going to hit you with a message in their app or on their website with a promo code to use on our website, bdge.co, for 3 months free of the Big Dog membership, all right? So you can pay the $10 a month and get it. You get the weekly rankings, you get our waiver wire rankings, you get our private Q&A live stream show, you get a private Discord channel in there. So you can get that at full price, or again, super heavily discounted, 3 months free if you go to MGM, deposit $10 or more with code BDGE or Big Dog, play any slip on there, and you're in, all right? Alvin Kamara. Now, Kamara's a tough one right now. He hasn't performed that well. He's like the RB 18 in full PPR because his receiving totals have kind of fluctuated pretty drastically from week to week, right? Sometimes it's every time it's Chris Olave. There's also a lot of Juwan Johnson going on. And then Kamara's been like heavy catch total, small catch total. I don't think I want to overreact to a couple games of Kamara's small catch total to be like, oh, he's no longer catching 3, 4, 5 passes a game. So I still think he plays the ultimate primary pass catching role. And when you look back at last year with his games with Rattler, he was catching 4, 5, 6 passes a game. So I'm not going to overreact to it. He's going to go right into the feels good tier. The biggest issue with this is it's not game script. Obviously, game script would almost favor Alvin Kamara in terms of his pass catching ability, but just time of possession. Like 16.5-point favorites, you got to imagine James Cook is going to get, 18 plus carries, and all the running backs are going to get involved in this one. So it's going to come down to time of possession, and can the Saints run enough plays ultimately to get Kamara to where he needs to go? Philly at Tampa Bay. The Buccaneers badly need their offensive line back. Like, Bucky, to me, regardless of how inefficient he's been, that's an offensive line stat. That is not a Bucky Irving stat. 25 carries last game. 25 fucking carries, can only get to 65 yards. Again, they are without the majority of their offensive line. They played that game without 60% of their starting offensive line. We'll have to keep an eye out for practice reports to see if they come back, but I'm not wavering on Bucky whatsoever. That opportunity share is insane. Saquon Barkley is obviously going to be a must start as well. And then Rachaad White, I guess, shaky flex, but probably rather not for me. Tennessee at Houston. So we've got Tony Pollard coming off his first touchdown game. This is a 38.5-point total. One of the lowest, actually definitely the lowest on the entire week. Houston's run defense has not been good, though. 8th most fantasy points allowed to the running back position. Also, bottom 7 in EPA per rush to the running back position there. So a great matchup for Tony Pollard, at least on paper. For me at this point, though, Pollard, his volume feels really good, but he's far from a sure thing just in terms of the efficiency and what the offense has been doing. They're still without J.C. Latham on the offensive line. It just doesn't look good. Although I will say, they're changing play callers, so maybe we see a little bit of a spike of efficiency or just some juice from that offense in week 4 with the changing of play calling duties out of Brian Callahan's greasy-ass fingers. Texans, we got Nick Chubb, we got Woody Marks. They split the snaps 50-50 last game. This is a Tennessee Titans defense that is pretty atrocious, especially against the run right now, as you could see, just all green across the board. I still have very, very strong reservations about Nick Chubb. And when I'm looking at David Montgomery, like, I'm not playing Nick Chubb over David Montgomery. I'm not playing Nick Chubb over probably even Ramondre Stevenson in that matchup. Chubb's going to go into the shaky flex. Woody Marks, until we see him actually get more touches, he's definitely going to sit in the rather not category. But I could see him moving up a tier or two in the next month or so as he gets more pass catching work, as he gets more rushing role ability in that offense. But Nick Chubb is a guy who, like, he hasn't really done much at all this fantasy season. He had the one touchdown at the end of the week where the defense kind of just let him walk in because they wanted to get the ball back. So it was kind of a fake touchdown. So Chubb will get some carries against a really good defense, but overall, like, very little big playability at this point. Washington at Atlanta. The Falcons and Bijan is going to be a must start for me. They're 1.5-point underdogs. Washington's run defense has actually been quietly phenomenal. They're one of the biggest gaps between pass defense and run defense right now. So we could see, I'm going to call it right now, Michael Penix bounce back game. Biggest fucking trap game of all time for Washington right here. Falcons take this handedly. On the Washington side of things, where's Jeremy McNichols? He's not in here for some reason. Falcons run defense has been relatively good. That being said, I don't know how you can have confidence starting any of these players. Like, none of them are dub flex. None of them, you don't look at any of these guys, Ja'Cory Cross-Murat, and be like, yeah, I'm deciding between him and Kenneth Walker. I'm deciding between him and Tony Pollard. Like, no chance. So he's going to go into the shaky flex category. Honestly, the other two, I have so little confidence in what we're actually going to get from the workload standpoint and how the split is going to turn out that I'm going to put Chris Rodriguez in rather not, and Jeremy McNichols, I'll have him in for next week, but he's also going into the rather not category for me. Move on to Indy at the Los Angeles Rams. No brainer here. Jonathan Taylor goes into the must-start category. The Colts are 3 points underdogs, 49.5 point total. I think this has some real shootout potential in this one. Kyron Williams, I think he's a great start as well. I think he's going to get a shitload of run. I ultimately just also don't see a world where he's not in your starting lineup in any capacity. So that's about it. And Blake Corum can find himself in the rather not. Jacksonville at San Francisco. The 49ers are 3-point favorites at home in this one, 47.5 point total. I believe it is expected to get Brock Purdy back. C-Max lines are insane. 74.5 rushing yards, 42.5 receiving yards, -180 to score a touchdown. If you guys follow me on Twitter, I was posting some insane 17-game pace stats based on the first 3 weeks of the season. And for running backs, Christian McCaffrey's on pace to see 181 targets, 142 receptions, and 1,207 receiving yards. All absolutely smash every record for any running back that's ever existed. They are using him to a damn fault at this point. I can't see how he holds up for the course of the year, but they are going to try to find out if that will work. So C-Mac against the Jags. The Jags defense, I will say, I think they're underrated right now. You know, we'll see how sticky it is through the course of the season. They've had some easy matchups, obviously started with Carolina and Cincinnati, so that probably skewed some of the numbers. And then they took care of Houston last week. Houston's not a great offense to be in right now, but I will say the Jags defense is something to keep an eye on. Won't change anything with Christian McCaffrey, of course. When we look at Travis Etienne and Bashaw Tutin, they're obviously on the other side playing against San Francisco 49ers, who have allowed the 6th fewest fantasy points to the running back position. They're obviously a much improved defense with Robert Saleh back there as a defensive coordinator. However, they did just lose Nick Bosa on the defensive line, which will make an impact both via the run and the pass. You know, I said last week I was a little bit weary about Travis Etienne because when he's not playing Carolina or Cincinnati, what are we going to see? And Etienne really didn't have a good game last week. Again, he got in because they let him score at the end of the game to get the ball back. But for me, Etienne falls into this category for the time being, and I think Tutin probably falls into the shaky flex category as well. In tougher matchups, they're just not guys that I'm like overly excited about. They're not guys I'm overly excited about investing in and getting into my lineup. Baltimore at Kansas City. We've got Baltimore 2.5-point favorites, 48.5-point total. Derrick Henry, yeah, he's got the yips right now with the fumbles a little bit, but he's Derrick Henry and he is going into your lineups. On the other side of the ball, again, like the Ravens' run defense has been terrible, but they've been without a couple of their best run defenders. So we'll see if Van Noy and the interior of their defensive line do make it back for this game. If they do, that's a huge boost to their run defense. If not, you'd imagine Kansas City tries to attack them in similar fashion to the way that Detroit with David Montgomery and Gibbs did. That being said, to compare Pacheco and Hunt to Gibbs and David Montgomery is something worthy of execution, I believe. So I don't even know how you can start either of these guys. Like, I'm going to throw them into the shaky flex category. I don't even know why I'm doing it. I'm just going to say that to you. I don't know why they deserve to be in the shaky flex category. I really don't think they do, but whatever. Chicago at Las Vegas. Vegas 1.5-point underdogs. The total 47.5 points though. There is some shootout potential here. I think most of that's going to come via the air. However, the Chicago Bears defense is pretty fucking terrible. And I do think Ashton Genty is going to have a strong game. I think he will have his best fantasy statistical game of the season. And I feel pretty good about him this week. I'm actually going to throw him into the feels good tier, meaning I would start him over these guys. Now, obviously, throughout the rest of the week, there will be some changes through my rankings. Maybe one or two of them does jump Genty. But for right now, Genty, 63.5 rushing yards, 12.5 receiving yards, -140 to score a touchdown. Those are very strong numbers in Vegas right now. And I kind of echo that sentiment there. I just think the Chicago Bears defense is something that's going to solve a lot of teams' offensive woes. On the flip side, we got DeAndre Swift, who I'm still rolling out as a dub flex. I think the game environment's pretty good. 47.5-point total. The Raiders have had a very, very sneaky good defense up to this point, at least on the run side of things. But Swift is the primary back as long as he's healthy, and Kyle Mann guys are rather not for me. Green Bay at Dallas. Green Bay, 7-point favorites on the road, 47.5-point total. This is without a doubt that multi-touchdown game for Josh Jacobs. The Dallas run defense is not great. So Jacobs is going to be a must start. On the other side of things, the only player that you're even thinking about would be Javonte Williams. Packers are such a tough run defense. I mean, he's getting so much work though, and he's looked really, really good. So he's obviously worthy of getting into the dub flex category, and I'd play him over guys like DeAndre Swift and probably Tony Pollard at this point. He's in this mix with guys that are like, you feel good about having in your flex spot for sure because the workload's going to be there. They might get in for the touchdown. But again, the Packers defense is so stiff that it's hard to predict that that's going to happen. That is a Sunday night football game. We do have 2 Monday night football games this week. So we got back-to-back games. We got the Jets at Miami And then after that, we got Cincinnati at Denver. What a fucking show the NFL is putting on for us. Shout out to them. So you got Breece Hall going against Miami. Now, Miami, their defense everywhere is terrible. Ninth most fantasy points allowed to the running back position, third most EPA per rush allowed, and they were just allowing the single most points per game to opposing teams. So Breece Hall has shown very little. We don't know who the quarterback's going to be. And since week one, the offense has just not gone well on the ground. So I'm going to throw him into the dub flex category because the matchup is beautiful. I'm going to throw Braylon Allen into the rather not category. On the flip side of things, Achane, of course, is going to be a must start for us. I do think Ollie Gordon can be started as a shaky flex play here because the Jets' run defense has not been good either. And I do believe that Ollie Gordon will continue to see 6 to 8 carries, maybe a goal line touch or two. Like, again, same thing with Kareem Hunt. 6 to 8 carries, maybe a goal line touch or two. Like, you don't feel good about it, but you could do worse. Moving to Cincinnati at Denver, the last game of the slate. Now, this is one where, I mean, Dobbins, I think, is pretty simple. Dobbins, we're going to throw right into the feels good category. He's been dominating touches. This is a great matchup against Cincinnati, 7.5 point favorite. So they're expected to, win this one handedly at home. RJ Harvey is still definitely not startable until we see more touches out of him. The big talking point here, of course, is Chase Brown, who has been quite literally like the least efficient running back in the NFL, and that doesn't help because he's running behind the least efficient run blocking offense in the NFL. So have I completely given up on Chase Brown? Samaje Perine got hurt, so I do think he's going to continue to see almost all of the workload here, but the offense is clearly broken against good defenses. So with Chase Brown, he's going to land himself in the shaky flex category, as sad as it is to see. He's definitely more towards the top than anything else because we can depend on his workload. When I'm looking at the tier of guys, you have, the much better players with really tough matchups, all the way down to the much less dependable players with good matchups. Chase Brown is way closer to the top of that tier, where I'd rather bank, obviously, on the player that we know is going to get workload, the player that we know has shown us good prowess at the NFL level before, that any given Sunday could pop off. So do I feel good about him? No, he's in the shaky flex category, but that's where he lands, unfortunately, right now. So through the first 3 tiers, we have 13 must starts. You've got 6 feels good players, so 19 plus 8 is 27. Anyone in the shaky flex category or lower ends up as the running back 27 or lower. We can hit poster mode for you one time right quick. If you want to see all the tiers together, I know this will be impossible to see for those of y'all that are on mobile right now, but hopefully this helps. Again, these are not ordered exactly how I rank the players, or just more in terms of how I'm looking at the tiers for this upcoming week. If you want the full rankings, again, the cheapest way to get them is by going through our partner page, MGM, the MGM app. Deposit $10 or more using code BDGE or Big Dog. Play any slip, and as soon as you do so, they'll send you a message with the promo code to get the Big Dog membership absolutely free for the next 3 months on BDGE.co. All right? Subscribe to the channel for the wide receiver version tomorrow, and I will see y'all then. Smoochies. Mwah.